Hi, I'm True Quiet, again. This is part 2 of my tutorial for Project Diva Megamix Plus. In this episode I'll be discussing basic techniques. Rhythm isn't really something that can be taught in a YouTube video like this, but I can teach you how to optimize your gameplay and make hard patterns easier. The first and most important technique you can possibly learn as a Diva player is to use both hands. Aside from distributing the effort more equally and therefore reducing the risk of injury to your dominant hand, almost every song in the game is made considerably easier by this. Easy and normal songs are a good place to start here, as the stakes are lower. Try to alternate between your two hands for each input. You have plenty of time in a pattern like this one to wrangle your other hand into doing what you want. Try and make it through the entire song this way. Once you've accomplished a fair bit of practice, move on to hard. Notes on hard are usually faster paced, but almost always still relatively reasonable. Using both hands doesn't have to be exclusively reserved for alternating faster sections, however. Take a look at what I'm doing here. The notes themselves are alternating, but by making each type of note a specific hand, I don't actually have to move my thumbs back and forth between the buttons. In fact, this technique doesn't have to be one-to-one like this. Observe. I'm not alternating hands every note here, because that would actually be more work than what I am doing. By hitting one type of note with my left, and another with my right, I am able to easily play this line. Next up, I'd like to talk about multi-notes. I see new players have trouble with these a lot, mostly because they don't know how to quickly identify which buttons the game wants them to press. So first, I'll explain how multi-notes are charted, because there are specific rules the game will always follow. Multi-notes can be charted in one of two ways, vertical or horizontal. Horizontal notes have considerable space between them, but they're actually much easier to read. To understand why, though, you first need to understand the Project Diva arcade cabinet. The Project Diva arcade cabinet features a controller that looks like this. Most of these charts were originally designed for the arcade version of the game, and if you pay close attention to where the notes appear on the screen in relation to the controller, it will start to make more sense. From left to right, the notes are up, left, down, and right. So, for example, if I were to see two notes in the middle of my screen, I wouldn't even have to look at them to know that the game wants me to press left and down. This is probably the technique in this video that will take the longest to learn, but recognizing the inputs for multi-notes without having to actually check them is an extremely important thing to have in your toolkit. This applies to triples too, even though the game might try to disguise the notes by charting them in a triangle shape. Essentially, the note's vertical position on screen doesn't actually matter. Now, on to vertical charting. From top to bottom, the notes are the same. Up, left, down, right. Take note of any gaps, or just look at the colors of the arrows if that's what you're using, and it's honestly pretty simple. As for the inputs themselves, in most cases it's completely fine to press one of the notes with each hand. Sometimes, though, pressing two notes with one hand is a better idea, leaving your other hand free. The left hand is better at doing the up/left and the down/right combos, while the right hand is better for the up/right and down/left combos. The left/right and the up/down combos are a pain in the ass. You can't really play those with one hand. Using both hands, or maybe binding them onto your bumpers if you really want to, is usually a better idea for those ones. For triples, you can practice pressing two notes with one hand and one with the other, or you can simply rebind them onto the bumpers, as I showed off in the previous episode. For quads, I would highly recommend binding them onto the triggers, as I did last time. This allows them to be completed in a single tap. Also, quad notes do not follow the charting rules I just explained and will often appear in a rectangle shape instead, but it could theoretically be any shape. I'd like to tie the two concepts I've talked about so far today together. Sometimes, usually on harder difficulties, you can be faced with a pattern like this. In this situation, a smart play is usually to alternate between hitting a double note with one hand and the single with the other. And while we're on the subject of alternating, sometimes you won't alternate back to the same note. We call these 270s or 360s, depending on how far the rotation goes, and they require you to alternate while moving your thumbs at the same time. Now, I feel like I might have already overloaded you with information, so go take some time to practice. Try and use these techniques to work your way up to hard difficulty. Finally, I'd like to talk about a strategy for getting those optional holds. Remember how I bound both triggers to all four notes at once? This is why. First, I hit the hold note with my thumb, and then before I let go of the button, I squeeze one of the triggers and hold that instead, leaving my thumb free to continue pressing buttons. If you need to add another note to the hold, press it and then squeeze the other trigger, without letting go of the first one until after. You can alternate triggers in this way to get all 4 notes in, and it works for multi-holds too. Just make sure not to drop the hold while swapping it. Alright, hopefully this video has demystified some of the game's finer points. As always, get some practice. This video is no substitute for actual experience, and don't rush. I explained a lot in the past few minutes, but just try one thing at a time, okay? You'll get there. Good luck!